xjtalk show.
It's on.
Now. Good evening, and thank you for joining Jeep Cherokee xjtalk.com show. Having a new toy to play with tonight. It is the mic boom. You can probably see the microphone is now coming from a magical place above me instead of below me. You have to say that very carefully. My name's Tony. I am Muckleroy on xjtalk.com, and this is the show about Jeep Cherokees, not the Grand. The Grands are okay, but it's not an XJ. Hey, that's pretty good. I'll have to remember that one. Tonight will be Steve Howard, 4.3 LXJ from xjtalk.com, talking about the care and feeding of your winch. And as I've been saying on Twitter and Facebook, I'm 99% sure that's with an I and not an E. I hope so, because the one with the E, that's just not this kind of, that's not the kind of show we do. We'll get started here in just a second. I'm going to learn how to talk in the meantime. xjtalk.com show is brought to you by Jeep and Outfitters. From tow rigs to trail rigs to daily drivers, we'll get you outfitted. See all of what Jeeping Outfitters has to offer at jeepinoutfitters.com or call 972-221-5286. xjtalk.com.
xjtalk.com.
It's where you go when you're not off-road. Hey, how would you like to advertise on XJ Talk Show and reach a worldwide Jeep audience? Just send an email to advertise@xjtalk.com for more information.
This is Brian XJ, just calling in to tell you that we really like the website, full of a lot of tech and a lot of good people. I always get a response back quickly. Thanks, have a good day.
Hi, I am Odin from Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. I have joined with xjtalk 2 years ago, with warm welcome from moderators and members of site. I learned a lot from friends at xjtalk. Yeah, xjtalk is real friendly community of Jeep Cherokee owners, and I say we're always ready to help each other and welcoming you to the xjtalk for fellowship. Enjoy our weekly podcast, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter channels. Listen definition about xjtalk by Big Jim 350 from Tony's signature. Come here and join with us. Welcome to xjtalk.
Are you interested in being a guest on XJ Talk? Well, you can contact me via email, tony@xjtalk.com. That's tony@xjtalk.com. Yeah, I love that. That was from Orderdeen in Mongolia, and he did a promo, and he was hoping to win the Performance Distributor Firewire 4.0 kit, and he came pretty close, but that went to Weldman. Yes, I know, Weldman. I still have to get that out there to you. We had a discussion in chat today about that, and I explained to him how it was held up because of a new Homeland Security ruling that you can't send anything that's deemed hazardous by Homeland Security through the mail. And I had him going. He was trying to figure out how I was going to be able to get that to him. He really wanted it, and he was a good sport. He's still talking to me. I don't know that I think I would have been just mad because I can lie pretty good. I know just enough about stuff to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. So remember that when I'm giving you advice on your Jeep XJ, I always try to let you know if I'm going by something that I read or something that I've actually done, because that's what I'd like to know. Does the guy Does the guy helping me know what he's talking about, or is he just being a guy and acting like he knows what he's talking about? And we all do that. Well, let's see. Who we have in here tonight? We have East Texas Hunter, Hooked on Drugs. No, I'm sorry, that's Hooked on XJs, PEIXJ, and VW Fool Y. And, well, Turl just left. Gosh, I guess he didn't want me to say his name. Sorry, Turl. Too late. Bear told me that he had to get some sleep tonight. I told him he should sleep in the show like most people do. Ba-dum-bum. But he excused himself, which is perfectly fine. You guys, the live show, to me, it's fun being in around the chat room and experiencing the full flavor of the show. But the primary purpose thing of doing this was the podcast. So if you can't be here for the show, you can at least listen to the podcast, which is available on iTunes. It's also available on podcast.xjtalk.com. So one way or another, you can listen to the show. It's on YouTube. You can do a search for XJ Talk on YouTube, and there's just many ways. You can see the recording on Ustream, so it's probably going to be up on the site in one of the forums. So there's all kinds of ways to be able to keep up with what's going on the show. Oh, that reminds me. Please call in any questions or comments that you have on the show that you would like to be played on the show. And you can call 530-675-4102. And we're going to be using the line tonight to talk to Steve. But any other time, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, you can call in, and that's our feedback question line. So you need to call us and leave us a message, and we'll get that question or comment answered or comment played. And again, it's 530-675-4102. If that's long distance for you and you would rather just record a MP3 or WAV file, you can do that and just email it. And you can email that to webmaster@xjtalk.com. So I want to throw up some music real quick. We're going to get Steve 4.3 LXJ on the phone, and we'll talk about the care and feeding of your winch. Good God, that's the biggest problem I have with that song is that blah, blah. You know, I think that's evidence that there's drugs in the music industry. But the rest of the song sounds great, doesn't it? Okay. Oh, gotta play this.
Somebody's calling.
Somebody answer the damn phone.
It's an XJ Talk live phone call. And truth be told, I called Steve, not the other way around. But, you know, the promo doesn't say that. Or the whatever the hell that thing's called doesn't say that. Let's see. Hey, Steve, we got you there?
Yeah, we got me.
Ah, excellent. Sounds like the audio is adjusted for a change. I like getting everything set where I just turn the button, just press the button for it to come on, and it sounds good. Are you able to hear? You able to hear me? Okay.
Yes, I am.
Excellent. That's the other problem I always have. And I know we already discussed on the phone. You've turned down the show on your side, so there shouldn't be that irritating delay. No echo for you, in other words.
Right.
So as I was promoting this a little bit this evening, I was telling everybody that this show is going to be about the care and feeding of your winch, and I was almost certain that you were referring to the winch with an I and not an E.
Yeah.
Excellent.
We want to leave the winch out of it.
Yeah. No, it's not that type of show.
Yeah, well, she's easily offended.
Of course, it could be if everybody wants to listen to the care and feeding of your winch, but it sounds illegal to me.
Yeah, I'm sure that Homeland Security would want to be interested in that.
I think I'm on several watch lists already, at least if not directly, indirectly, because of my association with the website.
Yeah, you subversive, you.
All the various discussions we have on the site, which, by the way, xjtalk.com is more than just a Jeep site. We have a lot of fun talking about things, making fun of one another. There's a poll that I put up earlier today about do you wash your hands after you use the bathroom in a public bathroom? I didn't want to ask about home because, you know, it's closed doors, lights may be off, and people like to keep that secretive. But in public, it's kind of hard to keep it secretive. So it has nothing to do about Jeeps. It's just something that I found interesting over the years, being in public bathrooms and hearing people walk in, use the bathroom, and then walk right out. And you kind of notice, at least I do, hey, I didn't hear running water. They just flushed and left. Who was that? I don't want to shake hands with those people.
Yeah, I know. It's something you don't want to think about.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, that's just kind of the way I am. I talk about things that people don't want to think about. So
you just need to carry hand sanitizer with you.
Well, I'm not a freak about germs, but it's just the thought of it. You know, as I was telling Renee in the post, you know, as a kid, I never washed my hands. I mean, come on, why would I wash my hands? And I'm sure they were very oily and sticky. Well, actually, I couldn't handle sticky, but oily and dirty and I mean, you know, whine, bitch, and moan if I had to wash my hands. And now as an adult, I think when you get the flu for the first time and get the good double barrel flu is when you start thinking about germs. Good God. It's not that I thought I was going to die. I was hoping that I would die.
Yeah, I had that here recently. We've been down, and I'm still not 100%.
I'm sorry to hear that. It's really rough.
Yeah, it hangs on for a month.
It got really bad for 3 days, and those 3 days I should have stayed home, but because of my work ethic, which is to go to work but not really do anything, but you know, at least show up. I was there for 2 of those 3 days, and the day that it was just absolute worst, I just couldn't go, and I should have stayed home all 3 days. And next time I will. But so far, using the paper towels to open the door and washing my hands vigorously with hot water and soap, it's been working. I don't know if that has anything to do with me not getting sick with the flu, but I have not gotten it in the last 5 years or so. And
no, I've been a couple of years, but I got it this time around.
I'd blame the wife.
Yeah, well, you know, it's just one of those things. You can pick up a flu virus anywhere, and all you have to do is rub your eye or eat something or whatever, and you're done.
Yeah, almost literally. At least it feels that way. Okay, well, let's get on to the subject. You and I haven't discussed any of this, so it's going to be off the cuff, shooting from the hip. At least you know what you're talking about, so I'm sure it will be as good as it always is. By the way, thanks for jumping in on short notice. I just spoke with Steve last week about let's do another show. This is, I think, your third show with us, and
I think so.
It's been very interesting each time. The first show we kind of got to know you, and actually I probably should get into the habit of doing that. As I mentioned, Steve is 4.3 LXJ on xjtalk.com. He's one of our moderators. And Steve, give us a little background. You're located in California, but what city?
Well, we're in Durham, but nobody knows where that is. It's near Chico. It's a little farming community. It's about 75 miles north of Sacramento, which is a lot easier to find on the map. And we're down in the flatlands, not too far from a creek that used to have gold in it. So since I'm sitting on the floodplain, I've been wondering one of these days if I can just dig up the whole place and get some gold. But anyway, we're right at the base of the Sierras. We live about an hour away from rock crawling in a couple of different directions, and not very far from heading up over the Donner Summit, get up some really high elevations. We're within easy commuting distance of the Fort Ice Creek Trail, and I've been on it several times, and have yet to get to the end of it, though. But anyway, that's sort of the area. We're in a nice area where we can grow lots of fun things and so forth, and got enough land to have a shop, so I'm happy.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful area. I mean, I've seen a few pictures of you going out with your Jeep, which is quite specialized. In fact, your namesake or user namesake is from the engine that you chose to put in there.
Yeah, it is. The smog police got after me and said I couldn't run that 2.8 anymore, even though it was a good engine. I liked it. It did what I wanted to do, and it got 22 miles to a gallon. So, but they it had a carburetor problem, and I couldn't buy any carburetor parts for it. They quit making them, so I said I am not going to throw this Jeep away. So I did a little research and decided I was going to put a 4.3 in, and I had it figured out so it was going to be simple, but the smog police made it a lot more complicated. And so one thing led to another, and it's kind of a Chevrolet with an Atlas behind it right now.
Yeah, and, it's a very interesting build, and I don't guess you really have done anything with it here recently.
No, I haven't. We've been kind of hurting on gasoline. I'm going to be going out again here soon in the spring. I'm hoping to get Mark from Payless to go with me. There's a new trail that not too many people have heard of, and some locals told me about that live up Cohasset Road, not far from it, and they told me how to get there, and so we're going to see if we can go find that, and it's supposed to be an all-day thing, and then when we do, we'll try to get a group together, and we'll have lots of pics.
Excellent. Love the pictures. We're all picture horrors on xjtalk.com, and we got a lot of them. And,
yeah, I've been out, but I just haven't taken any pictures because I've either been by myself or I didn't want to get out in the middle of a water hole and take a picture or whatever, so it's been one of those things.
Taking pictures are hard, especially when you're working on a vehicle and you're trying to do a write-up or you want to try to have some information to share with people on the site. It's a lot of work, and we really appreciate people taking the time, whether they're out having a good time or not having a good time working on their vehicle. And I shouldn't say that just because I don't enjoy working on mine. I enjoy saving the money, and I enjoy being done and knowing that I did the job. I'm not so much of let me go lay under the Jeep or pull the tire off and redo the brakes because I like it. It's just because it's got to be done, and that's the only way it's going to get done is if I do it because I can't afford to have it done. And, like I was telling somebody, yesterday, even if I was letting somebody else do it, I'd be standing there watching them do it to make sure it was done right. So I'm pretty well damned if I do and damned if I don't.
Yeah. Well, I enjoy working on things. I've always enjoyed making things, and I was sort of a child prodigy, even though my father didn't encourage that. And I've been making stuff and dinking around with stuff since I was about 4. And so right now, lately, I've been working on my son's Mighty Mite, and we want to get that completely ready to go and highway worthy by the 1st of June. And once that happens, I'm sure we'll have to have some pictures up in the woods and so forth with that. So we'll have another trip.
That's going to be a lot of fun. That's you've been doing a lot of pictures on that, and I also been doing a lot of work on it. And we sure appreciate you sharing that with us. We're probably going to get the Wrangler Talk site going here within the next 6 months or sooner, and we may have to move some of that over there to that site.
Yeah, we can do that. My son's got a Wrangler, so he can get on there.
Well, that would be good. I think that was the only thing we were really lacking. I thought it was a great idea. The XJ Talk was so successful, and I figured the same formula would work with a Wrangler related site. And I started it up and quickly realized I have no information on Wranglers. The only Jeep I have is the XJ. So, I was able to prime the pump, so to speak, with XJ Talk, especially with the bumper that Detours built for me. There was a lot of interest in that front bumper, and really helped get the site going, I believe, because it brought a lot of people over from several websites, Jeep websites that I was on, to look at the final product and look at it installed on my Jeep. It was kind of interesting on the timing on that, because it's not something I planned. It just kind of worked out that way. But I think it really made a big difference in getting the site going. Okay, anyway, let's go ahead and get to the care and the feeding of your winch.
Okay. Well, first off, I want to kind of preface my comments here. I've done a lot of winching, not just as a four-wheel drive owner, but I used to cut about 10 cords of wood for myself and then a few cords for everybody else to sell. And the way that I got it was I'd hook onto logs and drag them down to the landing up in Oregon. And so I got to give that poor old Dodge Power Wagon a good workout and the PTO winch on the front of it. And I learned by experience that there's things you shouldn't do to cable. And then later on, I graduated from that. I started logging. I bought a cat and hired myself out to yard logs on small sales. And there's a lot of winching there because you got to get the logs into you. And I set my own choker and so forth. And so I drug a lot of cable and hooked a lot of logs. So I got pretty intimate with cable and how it works and so forth. And there's one thing you notice, and that is if you do the right thing with your cable, like they do on a high lead logging show, they never replace their cable. It lasts forever.
That's interesting.
But, yeah, it's great. I mean, they spool it just right on their big drums and so forth, and they've got a mile of it on there, and literally, and it's never a problem. But on my winch, on my truck, I went through several lengths of cable over the years. I'd get about 3 years out of a 250 feet of cable, and then I'd have to go get some more.
How often were you using that?
Oh, I'd use it. I'd go out and cut wood. I'd use it 4 or 5 times to yard logs in and so forth, and I took it out four-wheeling a few times and got it hung up pretty good because it's so long and heavy. And so I'd use that winch probably, at least 40, 50 times a year.
Okay. Well, that's a lot of use then.
Yeah, it is.
I would think 3 years is pretty good. But, yeah, it's interesting that you see the loggers using them forever. Yeah,
and so I learned a few things from them. So, and I wanted to share those things tonight. And there's, the average guy will go out and buy a winch. He throws it on the front of his vehicle, and he's off. He gets stuck, and he gets his cable pinched first time he uses it, and then it's got a weak spot in it, and then he goes and breaks it right where that pinch was. And so the idea is to avoid that. And we have one ex-four-wheel drive shop owner around here who had 12 years of use on his winch, his worn winch cable, and it still looked good. And so he and I both use the same practices, so I thought I'd share those tonight.
Excellent.
So the first thing to do when you get your winch is to unspool the whole thing down to about 3 wraps, and get your significant other in her car and hook that cable on it and winch her in with her foot on the brake just a little bit. And the idea is that when that cable is put on at the factory, they just wind it on there nice and loose, and so it looks kind of pretty, and they box it up and they send it to you. But it's very important to get your cable on tightly, and so that it's as close together, so it's touching when it's tight, is particularly on the first 2 wraps, or the first 2 layers, rather, of the cable, because what happens is if you get in a hard pull and that cable is not on tight and there's some space in between it, you'll suck the cable down in between the layer 2 of the other cables on the layer underneath it, and it'll get stuck. And many times you'll have trouble spooling it out. You'll have to spool it out under power, and it'll get kinked, and it gets all nasty looking. And sometimes you can just put some tension on it and pull that out, and it's not too bad. There's other times it'll cause a strand or 2 to break, and if you do, right where that strand breaks, there's a weak spot, because it's reduced by a percentage of how many strands you have in your cable. And it'll break when you least want it to. It always happens that way.
Of course.
So anyway, the first time you use it, you need to take and wrap it up tight on the drum, and then just keep it that way. And then when you use it, don't just give it a fling. Have some care in the way that you pre-spool it out, and don't get any loose spots or anything in it. And if you do, you should pull it out even further and start with a slack cable before you winch and get it nice and even on there. And that way you'll avoid getting that cable pinched in the layers that are underneath it. The next thing that you need to be aware of is that because we never have anything directly in front of us when we go to winch, our cable always bunches up on one side.
Yep.
And if you're not paying attention, you can wrap that cable up so big on one side that it actually starts getting pinched down tight between the spool and the bumper, or the spool and the fair lead, or however you got it set up.
Right.
And then you start getting into problems because, number one, you can't finish your winching eventually, and 2, you can't get the cable back out without somebody else's assistance.
Right.
So what you should do, if possible, and it's not always possible, but if possible, is to winch a little ways until you get it all bunched up, and then stop winching, peel the cable off, and go back to where it's a nice, smooth layer, spool it up, put a glove on your hand and spool it up by grabbing it and getting it nice and snug as much as you can. As you get it back on nice and evenly, and then continue winching, and it'll bunch up again, and you might have to do that, for instance, 3 times before you get done with your winching. But if you do that every time, you'll have a nice new-looking cable. It'll look like it did when you got it, and it'll always be strong and ready for you when you need it.
Yeah, it's I've done about 4, maybe 5 winching now, and the other day I did it just because some kids got stuck across the street from a restaurant that I was eating at, and I was going to ask you about that bunching thing, because it's really difficult to keep the cable on, like you say. It's never straight. I don't know if it's because it's kind of hard to position the winch properly, Because, I mean, I pulled up behind them, and I was directly behind them, but it's still bunched up on a side, and I wound up having to do exactly what you're talking about. And I'm not so sure I didn't do some damage to the winch because I wasn't being that careful with it. I figured it's a winch, and you're supposed to use it, and those things are going to happen. And obviously, if it gets too high, it's not going to, be able to pull the cable in, and as it pulls it in, then you're not going to have the room. But, I just dealt with it as it came. I'm going to have to be a little more careful with it from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, well, depends on, a lot of people, they're just used to buying new cable every year. And a lot of hardcore rock crawlers around here, that's what they do. Every year they buy new cable. And but they also don't take care of it. They're out there, they use it, it goes on however it goes on, and then they take off and get hung up on the next rock. And so then they get it out and they use it again and so forth. And it starts getting pinched and it starts getting kinked, and pretty soon it starts to break, and then they go and they buy another cable.
I guess the synthetic rope can be, or the synthetic cable can be as problematic.
It's not as problematic. It doesn't pinch as bad, and it doesn't respond to kinking the same way as wire rope does. But it does have some drawbacks. One is that it doesn't like abrasion. If you are winching and it gets on something hard and abrasive like a rock, it'll tear it up pretty good, pretty fast.
Mm-hmm.
And the other is that you've got to have a smooth fair lead and smooth rollers if you're going to use rollers, and because it doesn't take much before those fibers under stress can get cut real easy, and so you've got to be aware of that. And the other thing that I'm wondering about, and I've never really heard anybody talk about this, and that is if you use synthetic out in the mud and you get that thing full of mud, there's thousands or millions of little sharp edges in those strands, and I've never heard anybody say how that affects those synthetic strands.
Yeah,
and,
the sand and the dirt and all that stuff would be very abrasive to the.
Yeah, and so jury's out on that for as far as I'm concerned. I think I prefer cable in mud, and probably synthetic if you're smart about it in rocky areas. So anyway, that's what you should do, and you should always handle it with a glove if you can. You never know when you're going to get a burr, and if one of those little strands breaks and it goes through your hand, you'll know it right away. I guarantee you.
Yeah, like a needle.
Well, it turns into a knife blade.
Oh, okay.
It'll just go right through your skin and cut you just like a knife. So you should wear gloves when you handle it. It doesn't take a lot of gloves, but just, some gloves, preferably leather, and just as a safety precaution. I've got some real light gloves that I use that work just fine. Of course, my cable doesn't have any burrs on it yet, so it's not really an issue. But I've never used real heavy gloves, even when I logged. I always used light gloves, and it worked fine.
Right.
The other issue that I wanted to talk about is when you're winching, it's what you attach to. I read an article in Four Wheeler magazine one time. They were talking about winching setups, and they were showing snatch blocks and things like that. And what struck me real fast was they were, having been an ex-logger and so forth, is that they were in a stand of real tall, skinny conifers of some kind. I'm not sure where they were, what part of the world they were in, but they were hooking up H2s to it, fairly heavy vehicle, and snatch blocks and so forth, and they had the everything hooked up about chest high. And my take on that situation is that if with that 6,000 or 7,000 pound vehicle, if it was stuck, and especially with a snatch block hooked up that high on that tree, that it was coming down, they were going to have a big dent in the top, which would be very embarrassing, I think. So I emailed Four Wheeler. They printed my letter, and they said, yeah, that's right. Of course they were just demonstrating, but still, it's something that people should be aware of, and that is, what are you hooking to? And you never want to hook very high on a tree unless it's a very large tree, because it is possible to pull them over.
Sure.
And you have to know your trees a little bit. Everybody's sort of familiar with the area where they live. And at the time, I was living in Western Oregon, and there's a tree called a yew tree. They make bows out of it, and certain other things where they need real hard, tough wood. And those trees grow in kind of a swampy area, and they can get up to 2 feet in diameter. But if you hook a winch up to it at chest height, it is possible to pull that big tree right over on your XJ. And I guarantee you, it's heavy enough, it will flatten it.
Man,
it doesn't matter if you have a cage.
That would not be that would not be fun.
No, it wouldn't. They have very shallow roots. So the rule is whatever you hook to, you need to hook down at the base of it. And if you do that, you'd be surprised at what you can hook to and pull your Jeep out. The last time I used my winch to pull me out uphill in the rocks, I hooked onto a piece of brush. It was a fairly large piece of brush. It was called, it's a horse chestnut or California buckeye, if anybody's familiar with it. Sometimes they make tables out of the stumps if they get big enough. But it's basically just a big bush. And if you hook to the base of that, or some manzanita, or some of the desert species, right at the bottom there, and use your tree strap to go around it and get it on the bottom, you would be amazed at how much power you can put on that without pulling it out of the ground. But if you try to hook up high on it, it'll just break.
That's all about leverage.
Yeah, it is. Well, it's the way the bush is designed. It's supposed to be strong right at the base. So I pulled my big old 7,000-pound power wagon out one time. It was caught on the bumpers in a mud hole because it was so long, and it wasn't going anywhere. And I couldn't reach anything with the cable except a fairly small piece of brush, and it wasn't very big. And I actually pulled it out with that piece of brush with the winch. So it can be done. Just gotta pay attention to what you're doing.
Well, I forget what it's called, but I do know that they have something that you can bury in the dirt and use that as a winch point. Something else.
Yeah, it's called a pole pal, and it's on my list of things to want.
I was going to say that's another one of those things. I mean, I've got the gloves, I've got the tree saver, I've got the winch, and so one of the things I was kind of noticing is I've been wanting to hook up my switches inside the cab where I can manipulate the winch from the sitting in the chair instead of having to the driver's seat, instead of having to hook up the remote cable and run it through the window and so on and so forth. And I'm probably still going to do that, but it's like what you're describing. You really have to keep a good eye on that cable, and I'm afraid that you're going to be getting in and out no matter what.
Yeah, you got to get out to hook it up unless you've got somebody that's being really nice for you.
Well, when you're pulling them out, they hook it up, and I like the liability standpoint of it too, because I tell them, you're hooking it up. Don't tear up my my tree strap, because you're going to buy it otherwise, and any damage that happens is on you. Right.
Well, that brings up another issue, and that is how you hook things. I am an advocate, and I've always used some short chains on the end of my snatch strap. And if you've got a clevis or something, that's fine. You don't have to use that little chain, but it's a 2-foot chain. It goes nicely around an axle or a piece of the frame or something like that, and it does the job that a clevis won't. And it also can keep you from getting a lot of oil and grease and crap in your strap too, which I don't like.
Right.
So I just hand them that and say, here, go wrap this chain around your axle or something like that, and I let them hook it up. And And the other thing is that if your drivetrain is up to snuff and everything, that a lot of times I may start them with the winch and finish it up just by backing up.
Oh, that's
or
interesting.
something similar.
I didn't think you were supposed to do that.
No, you can do it, but you got to have your drivetrain up to snuff. If you're about to lose a U-joint or something like that, you can break one, but you need to be pulling straight when you do, and you'd be surprised at how strong that Dana 30 is if you're pulling straight.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do that, and it saves your winch.
Actually, well, I was going to say, I had heard that it was not good to do that for the winch.
Oh, no, it doesn't hurt the winch. What the thing about electric winches is that the most fragile part of the whole winch is the motor, and that's what you want to save. And heat is the enemy. You don't want to get it hot if you don't have to.
So you just stop winching. The brake is applied automatically, at least on mine. I guess
Right.
It's like on most of them, and then you back up.
Yeah, just back up. And if you got an automatic transmission, it's a nice, easy pull anyway.
Now you don't want to jerk it though, do you?
No, you don't want to jerk your winch. Just the cable's gonna be tight anyway, right?
Right.
So you just have your foot on the brake, you slip it in gear, and just ease it back in low range, and you don't have to try to turn these guys into an instant slingshot.
Mm-hmm. And if it doesn't move, you continue winching.
Yeah, you can continue winching.
That's
But,
interesting. That way you can keep the temp down on your winch.
Yeah, and some people actually have more traction with their vehicle and can exert more pulling power that way than they can with their winch. And that Power Wagon I had was that way. It would pull more in reverse than you could with the PTO winch. The cable would break first. So it was.
That's good to know.
It was quite. Yeah, it's quite powerful, and many rigs, if they've got good traction and so forth, you can do that. They have the power to do it. Now, if you're in slippery mud and so forth and so on, that may not be the case. But
right.
Many times.
Well, that would have worked well on the recovery that I did the other day because when the cable started bunching up, I don't think you want to get it bunched up and pull on it because that could damage the cable. But it was a long pull, and I was now from what I hear, I could have just I was on dry ground. I mean, they were going through the mud hole, and I could have just backed up. But I'd heard that that was not a good thing to do. What I maybe I misunderstood, and what I heard was not to have it loose and then jerk it like you would a strap.
Yeah, you don't want to do that.
Right. But which is another thing I need to get is one of those 30-foot, 4-inch wide straps.
You don't need that much of a strap. A 4-inch strap is actually too much. The strap needs to have enough give into it so that it'll take up the shock.
Oh, that's interesting.
I've got a not very big strap, and it works okay, and I've got even a lighter strap that's made for towing that stretches really nice. And when I had my Mighty Mite running, it only weighed 1,700 pounds. I snatched a lot of Jeeps out that way. It usually took me about 3 tries, but I'd get them out. And just get it like a big rubber band, stretch it out.
Yeah.
Little by little, they'd come out.
I bet you that was fun to watch, too.
Yeah, it was nicknamed the vacuum cleaner. They'd go get stuck in the mud hole, and they'd say, "Get the vacuum cleaner out," and I'd get turned around and back down in there and hand them the strap and say, "Here, you're hooking it up."
Oh yeah, God bless them. I mean, you get it stuck, you're hooking it up, and then
you betcha.
And then if you get stuck, you can remind them, "Hey, remember all those times I pulled you out? You need to hook mine up."
You know what? I never got that little thing stuck, not once.
Well, smart or good, one of the two, maybe both.
It's just the vehicle. It's so different than anything else. And the area we were in was Western Oregon, the land of the temperate rainforest, and what gets you there is the crown in between the ruts.
Mm-hmm.
And that vehicle, being independent suspension, it would just sort of slow down, and it would roll along on the brake drums, and it would go through those areas at about half speed. So I just never got it stuck, and it would climb out of the ruts real easily and and so forth, and it was just really the perfect mud rig. So we're kind of excited that we're going to get Paul's running, and he cannot wait to take it out into some big mud hole.
Oh man, well it's fine when you got people there to help get you out. Boy, when you're out there by yourself though. Was there anything else that you wanted to cover? Because I'm just trying to keep an eye on time here. I don't want us to run out of time.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to cover is that something that I've done so that you can get a straighter pull is that to use my snatch block. For instance, I would hook to a tree on the side. There's never a tree in the center of the road. So, never.
It's never convenient.
So what you do is you use your tow strap and hook to another tree and put your snatch block on the end of it, and rig it up so that your snatch block is about in the center of the road, and then your cable makes that kink and goes off to the tree on the side, and you can make a fairly straight pull that way.
Yeah, that's another thing I got to get. Well, those things can be kind of expensive.
Saw some the other day. Payless had some for a good price, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Really cheap. So, but yeah, some of them can be expensive, and some of them are less money.
How do you determine which are the ones you need and which ones are the ones you don't need?
I just size them according to the how much pull the winch has.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, I don't want the thing coming apart on me, and not knowing anything about snatch blocks other than knowing that you can double your pulling capacity and redirect the line like you were talking about. I'm a little nervous. I mean, when I see one for $70 or $150, I figure that one's probably a good one. If I see one for less than that, I'm a little tumultuous as far as, should I, get this potential projectile?
Yeah, well, it won't be a projectile, and generally, unless it comes off of whatever you're pulling on. But there's two kinds of snatch blocks, and the construction is completely different. One is that's most popular, and I have one of those. Is the kind that the two halves swivel, so that you can fit the cable in there, and then they swivel back, and the two eyes match up. And
I was thinking that was the type that I was going to get.
Yeah, well, I've got one. Nothing wrong with it. They have a pound rating on them, what they're good for, and you should rate that according to your winch. The other type is more old-fashioned. They're quite a bit heavier, but they're very strong, and they have a pin in them, and the top of them actually comes apart. It's hinged, and you slip the cable in, then you put it back and run the pin through it, and it looks more like a block that you would get off of an old sailing ship, for instance. Only it's made usually out of cast iron, and those can be very strong, but they're also very heavy. So, and I don't think that they're entirely necessary. The other type, as long as they're rated for whatever double your, if you've got a 9,000-pound winch and you get a 19,000-pound snatch block, that's going to cover it, because you want to double the capacity of the winch for the rating on the snatch block.
Yep, I got to get me one. I don't know. I'm picking these things up one at a time and trying to remember to get them. Fortunately, I had everything I needed to get those kids out of the mud hole the other day. Get them out twice. Still can't.
Yeah, that's when you tell them you do this again and you're on your own, boys. See ya.
Yeah, I certainly did. Okay, well, that's great, Steve. And I was reading some of the comments in the chat room while we were having the discussion, and I saw at least one comment that this was great information. They were glad that they were here tonight. So that makes me feel really good. I gave you full credit and said that the subject matter was your choice. That I wanted to talk about something computerized or something, but actually I was thinking of wheel alignment, and because I need to align my Jeep, and I was just being selfish.
Yeah, there you go. One thing I think we ought to talk about some other time is air conditioning. it's getting to be that time of year, and there are some myths out there, and some facts.
Excellent.
So,
I'm all about AC. I guess you are too. It gets pretty warm where you're at as well.
You betcha. Yeah, and I used to be a AC tech as well as a service manager, so I've got some insights to share there.
Excellent. I love that subject. This is the first time I've heard of this from you. So, yeah, I've learned a little bit about it. My AC didn't work for a good year until I found out that they made a special goop that I'm sure is bad for the compressor that you can put in there, and it helps seal the rings and I forget what they're called now, the little rubber O-rings. Anyway, so now I have AC, but I think it short cycles. It gets plenty cold, but I think due to that short cycling, it's causing the electric fan to come on and come off more often than it would, and I think that's what is causing part of my running hot on the freeway.
You got to just put a switch on that fan and turn it on.
I have, and actually that's the way I kind of found out that it runs cooler if I just leave it on all the time. Even going down the road 70 miles an hour, it makes a difference. Somebody was telling me it probably doesn't act as a block to the air because it's turning.
No, it doesn't. And in fact, your fan, you don't see it. But if you're running down the freeway at 70 miles an hour, the air going through your radiator will make the fan turn. But it has to overcome the resistance of the motor and so forth. So
right.
It doesn't go through as fast as if you would have the fan running.
Yep. Because it made sense that you probably can't get enough airflow through any fans unless it was a jet engine to move that air faster than what the pushing of the vehicle down the road does. I do think I'm having a flow issue, and I think it's going around the radiator more than it's going through. But when the fan is on, I think that helps it move through the radiator. At any rate, we can discuss all the fun stuff. That's just been my hobby for the last 3 or 4 years, trying to figure out how to fix the running hot. And actually, it doesn't do too bad. I just can't run 80 miles an hour down the road. If I do 70, it stays fairly close to 210. It's not exactly where I want it, but I'm going to get it there. Okay, guys, and Steve, I think you know the deal here. We take questions, and I don't think you have any problem with that. I told the guys in chat that we were going to do some questions, so get warmed up. So, are you able to see chat, or do I need to read them to you?
Yeah, I've got it here. Been watching it.
Okay, good.
Watching it while I talk.
Good. Okay, guys, any questions for Steve on the care and feeding of your winch? Stunned silence.
I must have dazzled them with brilliance, or else they know it all already.
Well, Steve, while we're waiting for one of these questions to come up, okay, this could be trouble. Turl, what's your question? Turl would like to know what gauge cable were you running?
If you're running steel cable, it's got a rating on it. It should be sized according to your winch. 5/16 galvanized cable is generally rated for 9,000 pounds. So if you're running a 9.5 winch or less, you can run 5/16. When you get to the 10,000 and up, particularly the 12,000 anyway, you should be running 3/8 thickness cable. I don't know what that comes out to in metric. I can figure it out real fast here.
So do they make the area for the winch the spool onto? Do they make that larger to accommodate the cable, or do they?
Sometimes they do, or they just put less cable on.
That was going to be my other question. Or do they just put less cable?
Yes. Okay. To answer Turl's question, since he's over in the metric part of the world, 3/8 cable is 9.5 millimeters. And let's see, what's decimal equivalent of 5/16?
Well, it'd be 16 divided by 5.
No, it's 5 by 16.
Well, if you want to get technical about it.
Yes, I do.
0.3125.
Yeah, that's what I've got here too.
We could go to the moon. We've got accurate
Okay, that
calculations.
comes out to 7.92 millimeters, so we'll call it 8 millimeters. 8 millimeters for 9,000 pound and less, and over 9,000 or over 9.5, 9,500. You should probably go to would be the what did I say before? 10 millimeter.
Right, 9.5. Maybe 10 rounded up. Be safe.
Well, I'm sure they'd round it up over in that part of the world.
Right.
So.
And I'm sure parts of it wouldn't be 10 millimeter when you got done with it. Yeah, you talking about cable stretching. Rini actually told me about that, and we were out at Creekside, and we drove around, using the Jeeps, having fun. And then we went over to the area where you can park or camp, and we hooked on to separate trees, and spooled up the 100 feet. And I drug actually we both. Actually, Rini, we should have had a race. We drug the Jeeps towards the trees, and so I had used the winch prior to stretching it, but only maybe once or twice, and it wasn't a long, hard pull. So I don't know. Hopefully, I was able to stretch the cable before any damage was done. But
well,
yeah,
it'll stretch itself tight. It's more important to have a little bit of a pull on it to when you put it on the drum, so it stays snug on there.
Mm-hmm. But that was an alternative to hooking onto a car, just finding a tree and making some ruts with your tires.
That's true. You don't have to get a big stretch on it. 500 pounds tension, which is not a lot.
No, it really isn't.
Is all you need. So just get your wife, in the car with the parking brake on a little bit, and once you're in.
Oh, that's interesting. So it really wouldn't have to be a screaming drag down the street with the neighbors calling 911.
Yeah, really. Well, not only that, if you get too much tension on that cable, it's hard to get it to spool right.
That's true. Yeah, that's true.
You get 500 pounds on it, and even if you get a nice straight pull, that can be a challenge. When I did it the first time, I had to, stop and peel it out a little bit because it got crossed over and things like that. And so, and I had my wife's friend in her car when I did it, and so it's 500 pounds is all you need. It's not a lot. You don't have to get heroic about it.
Excellent. Do we have any other questions for Steve before we wrap it up? I never know how long the delay is between when I ask and when they hear it and when they formulate a question or something smart ass. Yeah, do you lube the
winch for the XJ?
I'm sorry?
Wayne's got one. What's a good size winch for the XJ? Winches should be basic rule of thumb should be the capacity should be double the weight of your vehicle. Now some XJs weigh a lot by the time you get all the stuff in them.
Mm-hmm.
But if you've got a 4,000-pound Jeep, you should get an 8,000-pound winch.
And I think, aren't they like 2,700 pounds or 3,000 pounds from the factory?
Depends on which one you have. My XJ with the little V6 in it and a standard transmission, with my winch on it, was 3,500.
Yeah.
And it's heavier now. I haven't weighed it, but it's heavier now than it was because I've put that larger V6. I've got quite a bit more transmission, and I've got a whole lot more transfer case because that transfer case weighs 185 pounds by itself.
Right. No, I mean, I think a good rule of thumb for an XJ is probably a 9,000-pound winch. You probably get away with an 8, but...
yeah. Well, I've got a 9.5 on mine. And
I think that's what mine is, too, is a 9.5. Can't remember.
Yeah. That's a popular size.
Mm-hmm. It's
probably
enough.
As big as you should go with a 5/16 cable.
Yeah, it's enough to drag that Jeep around real easy, especially when you get another one that's stuck in the mud or high centered.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I couldn't believe that. The only thing that was moving was my Jeep. That was just amazing. And then I got smart and moved around to the back, where it was where I should have started from. But
Now, that's another good rule of thumb. It's always easier to go back the way you came than it is to go forward.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't thinking about the reason why he got stuck was because he high-centered it, and he high-centered it because the pumpkin's on the rut. I mean, on the thing in the middle. What do you call the thing? The edge.
Differential pumpkin.
Yeah.
Oh, are you talking about the
dirt.
crown of the rut?
Yeah. The mound. Anyway, so pulling it back is a good idea because he obviously made it that far. So he either made it, he either cleared it or he dug a trench. So yeah, it went out backwards very easily. But forward, no, that thing didn't budge. I mean, it didn't look like it budged a quarter of an inch. It was solid.
Well, that's one reason. Before I go back to some serious mud up in Oregon, I built my rear bumper so that I could put a winch in it, and I'm going to do that so that I can winch myself out backwards if I need to.
Yeah, that's a beautiful bumper. I'm looking forward to seeing that. You don't have the winch in it yet, do you?
No, I don't. I sized that for my mile marker, which quit on me after I built the bumper.
Of course.
But of course. And that's when my wife said, "Go out and get yourself a good winch." So I said, "Okay, whatever you say, dear."
Did you do a double take?
No, I just said, "Okay, dear." So I went and bought that Warren, and she didn't bat an eyelash. Every time she sees it, she says, "Yeah, you needed a good winch." So I said, "Okay."
Well, with all the customization you do and all the tools and stuff you have in the shop, I'm sure it won't be any problem getting that thing fitted properly.
Well, the winch works now. I dropped it on the floor, and now it works. So I am going to take it apart and try to make sure that it's more reliable and probably put it on the back like I was originally going to do. Yeah,
I mean, I guess that is a good sign. You know, if you can, if it starts working, then it's probably just something loose or something that needs to be replaced, and you'll be okay.
Well, I talked to Mark down at Payless about it just to see what he had heard and so forth, and he said that the brushes get sticky in them, and then they don't make contact. And that's probably what happened to mine because there was no smoke or anything. It just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
And so a little vibration, drop it on the floor of the shop or whatever, kick it around for a little while. I touched some jumpers to it, and it fired right up. So I know now that if it ever quits again, I'm just going to get out the big hammer, and we'll fix it.
Well, after seeing all the pain and suffering that Rennie put his Smitty-built winch through, if and when I get to the point that I can afford to spend $300 for something that'll sit in the back of my Jeep, that's a real possibility. And getting the 2-inch receiver so I can just take that out and plop it in the back of the Jeep, and then I'll be able to do the same thing. It won't be as cool as your winch with that nice little bucket for the winch in there. But hey, if gas gets more expensive, we may just be winching ourselves around.
Yeah, no kidding. I'll have to get another horse, a horse or something.
So guys, any other comments or questions for Steve before we wrap this up? Yeah, I'm seeing bad brushes, comments on bad brushes here from several people. Something about KY. I don't see the mention of jelly, so it might be the state.
Oh, that's up above there a little further. They were talking about jelly and lubing.
I've said it before. That's the only reason why Mark moved to Kentucky is so he can say he lives in KY. It's an old joke, but it's mine.
Yeah, I know. I like it. I haven't heard it before.
Oh, really? Yeah, I thought I told it on a previous show. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions there. I think, as usual, the chat room takes on a life of its own, which is part of the reason for joining us in the chat room, because it's fun. So if you guys don't have an account, a Ustream TV account, you should get one. Steve, thanks a lot for joining us tonight. Very interesting subject, and they even said so in the chat room that had a life of its own. So I know it was. Maybe next week or the week after that we can get together and do the AC thing. It'd be very timely with summer coming up.
Yeah, I kind of thought it was.
So thanks again, and I'll catch you on the site. Have a very good night.
Okay, thanks. Good night, guys.
Well, guys, that's another show, another Wednesday show. Remind you again about calling in questions and comments to our call-in line. It's 530-675-4102. 530-675-4102. Just do it. It'll be fun. You can tell your friends and neighbors that you've made it on a podcast. They'll say, "What the hell is that?" You can explain it to them, and they'll look at you like you're crazy. Call in, questions, feedback, comments. Let me play you on the show. It's fun. Also, too, you can follow us on Facebook, xjtalk.com. Actually, I just think it's xjtalk, and on Twitter. If you're on Twitter, on Facebook, and you follow xjtalk, you'll notice that you'll see some of the posts come through. So if you don't have a smartphone and you can't get updates from the site using Tapatalk, you can follow some of the posts via Twitter messages and Facebook posts. So guys, thanks a lot. Remember, next week, Wednesday, 8 p.m. Central Time, and I'll let you know during the week what the show's going to be about. So this is Tony Muckleroy on xjtalk.com. Thank you for coming, and this has been Jeep Cherokee xjtalk.com show. Have a good night.
This is Big Jim 350, and I f***ing love xjtalk.com.
Hot stuff coming up.